Okay, welcome back to the Decodes recording booth at IPC Apex 2025. We are here with Timon Ruban from Luminovo. So tell us, what does Luminovo do?
Hello, well, thank you very much for having me on the podcast. Luminovo is at its core a quoting and sourcing software for PCBAs. So our core customer segment today is EMS, Electronics Manufacturing Services. And usually their supply chain quoting teams use our software to get out quotes to their customers much faster. That's the main use case. I would say the secondary is negotiating components. So at the very heart, our software helps you clean and source BOMs, either just one BOM or thousands of BOMs, to aggregate all of that together and negotiate larger volumes.
He's like underselling it. So I actually had a demo on the platform. It's amazing. So there's different features, right? So what's really cool about it is you can basically upload your BOM and your Gerber data. And then so it's not just doing the actual PCBA quoting for you as well automatically.
What's it use the Gerber for?
It'll actually do the PCB quoting for you as well. And then they have a list of vendors that you can choose from and get your sourcing from there. So it's like not only for buying components, it's also the fact for buying circuit boards as well. And then, there's a couple extra features like you talked about in there too. It really kind of depends. What I liked about it was there's whatever your niche wanted to be filled in, like they have a little sliver for you and whatever one you want, right? So it was kind of interesting to see that, if I wanted to just do one section or the other section, you have that option from there. And then also, if I remember correctly, the Gerber data did come with some design check in there as well.
A little bit, though it's mostly focused on quoting. So on basically extracting all the price relevant parameters from the Gerbers to automatically, on the click of a button, get a price for PCB. And I will say, maybe by way of introduction, maybe should let you do the sales for us in the future. But I'm the product guy at Luminovo. So I run, I'm one of the founders, but I run the whole product and engineering team. So working on new features. Right now, a lot of that is getting AI even more back into the product.
Without offering up your IP, can you talk a little bit about how that process works? How somebody can select variables and inputs and upload a Gerber and then instantly get a quote? Is it literally at the click of a button, the prices populate right in real time?
Yeah, I mean, click of a button, it's a little euphemism for you have to wait like 2-3 minutes. If
That's
it's a more
still
complex
incredibly fast
PCB for the processing to run. In the end,
still quite a bit faster than doing it by hand.
There isn't even one individual secret sauce. In the end, it was just years of building edge cases of the Gerber specification, which is a mess, a complete mess. But we've seen by now just thousands and thousands of boards and kept iterating on the software. It's in the end geometric algorithms. Like in the end, the price relevant things is the easy stuff like height and width. But then there's the hard stuff like the inner and outer layer structures and between copper clearance and trace widths and such things. And to not get confused when there's like writing on the Gerber, to not confuse that with the copper trace and like getting... So there is a few steps to it, but in the end, it's like, I would say, a very complex system that goes really step by step and analyzes all the Gerber to get those price relevant.
He deals with that with stencils. Because sometimes they'll send a paste file only to him. And then he'll see some weird aperture shape on there that kind of gives him a red flag of like, this doesn't make sense, right? So,
yeah, because they're not perfect. Sometimes there's things that shouldn't be on the paste layer that are, and vice versa, things missing. So that's why I always encourage folks to send their whole Gerber package. Sean?
If you go on our website, it'll say electronic supply chain platform. And the reason why we call ourselves a platform is actually, I think, you pointed out the PCB is like a special part compared to other quoting softwares. That is one of our main differentiators. And I think that's a little bit the reason for why we call ourselves a platform. Because in the end, solving supply chain problems is about getting all the right data and people into the same, ideally digital platform so that you can automate these collaborations. And one big, I think, special thing about the Luminovo platform is that we have a lot of PCB manufacturers as well that are on the platform where we work together with them to put their pricing models into Luminovo. So, and that's kind of the second part of this click of a button, get a price for a PCB. The first part is the extract the parameters. Once you have all the parameters that you would today by hand maybe fill into an Excel sheet or some website so that they then quote it for you, there's the second part that's like the pricing engine of the PCB. And for this, we work very closely with PCB manufacturers, just as we work closely with distributors for electronic off-the-shelf parts. But the off-the-shelf part is not news, and it's not really per se an innovation from Luminovo. There's many other tools that have been doing that before us. We also do that, important part of our platform. But I think it is the PCB part that is a little bit new.
So is there a cutoff point to the ability? Like, is there a certain type of complexity that then makes the software not capable of accurately reflecting the needs for the quote? Like if you have, say, like blind and buried vias or something like that?
So in theory, the answer is no.
Okay.
Like we can build really complex pricing models, and we have some manufacturers that have. It indeed depends a little bit on the PCB manufacturer that we work with, because they're basically, I think some of them are more secure in their own pricing for more simpler things, and they'll basically say, for all of this, I'll give you an automated price because I'm just like really sure I trust the software. Just do it. But once it gets too complicated, actually, I don't want to give out a price like this. I might want to double check it just to be really sure. So it depends. It depends a little bit on the PCB manufacturer and kind of how complex they want to go with their automated pricing and the capabilities. From a software perspective, you can go nuts.
Okay.
And the limitation is rather in the Gerber files, actually. So sometimes the Gerber files are still just too messy, and you'll upload something and then you'll have to like correct. And it's like the layers didn't get identified correctly because it's not
super annoying when it happens.
And
Like when I have to program the jet printer, sometimes the people who give me, sometimes the silk screen file still has all the shapes in there too. So it makes it really challenging to sort through and only see the things that you want to when some of the layers have information they shouldn't.
Right.
Well, for me in PCB fab, routing was the biggest place that we would get burned in, right? So because we never charged for it as a PCB fab guy, you just eat it, you know? But sometimes the customer wants like, I want to go up in this way and around this way, right? And like that is so much time on the router to go in and out. And then now if you have a carrier with that, like rails around it, it adds a whole nother level of complexity. So, you know, for the most part, like you're saying, right? If it's your standard job where you have, you know, this amount of holes, this is the smallest hole size, this is the type of finish they want, you can pretty much give a general, we'll charge this, right? And obviously you're going to have cases where they have this craziness in the PCB fab spec where it's going to be, you know, but even that, you know, eventually if you figured it out long enough, it's just numbers, right? It's just calculation at the end of the day.
With enough data points, eventually you'll have confidence.
Time studies and stuff like that. You know, I will say this: whoever's doing your marketing is doing a pretty good job, because
I'll give a shout out to Mark.
Well, I was telling, I was talking to Matt the other day, and I said to him, I said, I've had two people that aren't even EMS companies reach out to me and tell me to use your service. Like, it's wild. Like, one was like the University of Michigan. I deal with them a lot for grants, right? And one of the people there was like, "Hey, have you heard of these guys?" And I was like, "Yeah, I heard of them." and then he's like, and then like another time I had another person reach out to me. I'm like, "Yeah, I heard of them." And these aren't even like end customers, you know. So they just said like they had other EMS companies deal with you guys, and they've had a very good relationship, and it's worked out well. So
that makes me very happy to hear. We're actually here to celebrate the opening of our Luminovo Inc. So we're headquartered in Munich, Germany, and have been operating in Europe for quite some time. And in Europe, I've heard this a lot, that in Europe, basically in that space, everyone knows us and knows of us. But I think in the US, at least last year when I was at Apex, I didn't get any single statement, and everyone was like, "Luminovo, who's that? Who's that?" And so now we're actually just this week opened the Inc. We hired an American team here of local industry experts. So I'm very excited to get the name out a little bit also in the US.
It's
so
out
that makes me very happy to hear that
there.
we've
made
those
it's
first
out
baby
It's out
steps.
there, and it's going to be even more out there after this airs.
Yeah.
So,
Yes,
you
the
know,
decode.
you pretty much get ready for the fame. It's overwhelming.
It's the business is just going to come flooding you now.
that's why we hand out Sharpies, because you're going to need them to sign all the
To sign
signatures.
the
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great look into your product, and thank you very much for spending the time.
Thank you for hosting me.
Have
Thank
a
you,
great
Simone.
show.